my reasons for serving in the military were very personal. And honestly, as a 22-year-old male, I was enthralled with the adventure of it,
Yeah.
the excitement of it. I mean, driving around in a Bradley fighting vehicle, firing a 30 millimeter cannon is like freaking cool,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is
flying
definitely.
around in a
Yeah.
Black Hawk is really, really cool, and so, that was part of my motivation.
Positively West Virginia is powered by Breezeline high-speed fiber internet and sponsored by Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, Interaction Media, and Storymaker. With the help of these sponsors, we are able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one featured in today's episode.
Well, folks, we're visiting today with Zac Northup. He's an entrepreneur. He's a novelist, an author, and a business person here based out of Hurricane, West Virginia. Zac, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we're kind of doing this show as a special edition for the 4th of July, Independence Day in America. This will be airing July 4th, 2024. And I also got to say thanks again for being on the show the third time. This is the first three-peat we've had as a guest on the show. And
I am honored. Seriously, I am honored. Yeah.
I always enjoy catching up with you, and you're doing some really cool things. And I want to talk about the latest thing, Beyond the Fading Darkness, the second in the series to your book, your novels. Of course, the first book, Through the Fading Darkness, was number one book, and number two is just released on Amazon. So we're going to talk about that, and also want to really delve into the business that you've created around being an author, a novelist. So again, it's great to have you on the show. Zac, tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now with the release of this new book.
Yeah. Beyond the Fading Darkness, Beyond the Fading Darkness, picks up about 3 months after the first book ends. When I started doing the research for the first book, and for listeners, you can go back and listen to the first podcast about this topic.
We'll put a link on the show notes too.
So when I was doing the initial research for the first book, I realized that there was a lot of material from the Dickinson family archives that we could use. And the first book takes place in 1774. The second takes place in 1775. There will be a third, which will be in 1776, and so forth and so on. So theoretically, because it's the Revolutionary period and because we have so much source material, we could go basically from 1774 to 1783.
Wow.
I don't know if we'll do that. There might be a time jump, but so yeah, there's a lot of material. I knew that we would have a second book, and I know that there will be a third. But the storylines are based in what is now West Virginia. But back in 1774, it was the frontier. It was the Virginia frontier. And by telling those stories, we talk about not only, like sixth generation American settlers, we also have British Americans, British citizens, German, French, Shawnee, slaves, African Americans, and just this broad spectrum of characters that people seem to latch onto with the first book. They really liked them. And so I carried most of those, well, actually all of the characters from the first book into the second and added a bunch. Because there was historically in 1775, early 1775, just prior to the revolution starting in April, there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. We're talking like assassinations and spies and, massacres. There were these huge tensions going on between like the Americans, the British, and the Native American tribes in Ohio. Everybody was trying to position themselves like, okay, what's going to happen? Who's going to be our allies and all this other stuff. But there was it's called the Connolly plot. And it was named after John Connolly and Lord Dunmore, who was governor of Virginia at the time.
Yeah.
And that, when I was doing the research, that plot was like, okay, I can really work with this, because it's like, it's like psyops. There was this thing going on where they were trying to prompt violence between the settlers and the Shawnee and all this other stuff. And so the second book, it reads more like a spy thriller, espionage. There's some battles and stuff, but it has a very different feel from the first one. But it's still based largely in events that happen in what is today West Virginia,
Yeah.
the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. So it's
amazing.
the initial reviews have been pretty good.
I like the idea that you're talking about 1774, and it sounds eerily similar to 2024.
That's
history repeats itself, I guess.
It's certainly at the echoes.
Exactly. All the intrigue and inner workings, politics, and everything. So
it's crazy.
Zach, for those who didn't listen to the first episode back in 2023, tell us a little bit about your background and what kind of sets you up to be qualified, if you will, to be an author, a novelist.
I have a master's in history, but that doesn't really matter. I've been writing since basically the late 1990s, 1996.
Yeah.
Almost all of it nonfiction, and it focused on like history and things like defense policy and politics and all of this other stuff. But when I started ghostwriting, and this kind of touches back on Through the Fading Darkness, I was approached by the lady who became my business partner, Nancy Bruns. And she said, "Hey, I would like for you to write our family history." And they had a lot of source material. I started digging into it. I came up with a 9,000 word outline for a nonfiction history book focused on the Dickinson family. And in doing that research, I realized that we could really, really do well with this by making it historical fiction, because we can recreate dialogue and that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
But to answer take a step back. In 2021, as COVID was raging, I basically, at that time I was running an educational nonprofit, and I couldn't get access to schools. So I asked my wife, and she said yes. I said, "Look, I'm going to take a year off, basically a sabbatical. I'm going to redo the curriculum for the nonprofit, and I'm going to add some history stuff and that kind of thing." So again, I had a little bit of money. This sounds crazy, but I went on Amazon and I literally bought every book they had on the colonial period. Wow. It wasn't cheap.
Yeah,
but we're talking about like over 400 titles. And because for a number of reasons, I was scared about them going away. Yeah. And but over several years, I was reading 75, 80 some books a year. And I developed a pretty good knowledge about the colonial period just by reading, so when I came upon Nancy's project, I was like, oh my gosh, there's firsthand accounts of life in the colonial period here in West Virginia. Boom. So
that was kind of like the impetus that you needed to get started.
Right.
That is amazing. Zach, we're going to take a quick break. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
Adventure awaits. It's time to hit the road with a brand new Kia from Freedom Kia in Morgantown. Whether you're traveling near or far, you'll love the journey in the all-new 2024 Kia Sorento. Right now, save $3,750 on select 2024 Kia Sorentos. All month long, Freedom Kia is donating $50 for every vehicle sold to Davis Crew Kittens, Inc. Head to Freedom Kia right off exit 153 on I-79 in Morgantown, or visit us at www.freedomkia.net.
All right, we're back, folks. We're visiting today with Zac Northup. He is an author. He's based out of Hurricane, West Virginia. Is that in Putnam County? That's correct.
It is.
Yeah,
It
Putnam
is.
County. That's what I thought. I say he's an author, but he is an entrepreneur. It's hard. Zach, I want to talk. This is kind of a special episode because you're the third person or the third time visitor on our show, the third time guest, and we've never had that before. But also, you're an Army veteran, and I want to thank you for your service on behalf of all of our listeners at Positively West Virginia.
Thank you.
And just honoring that. I think it's fascinating because you've got this, this history degree. You've written a couple of novels now, historical fiction. But I want to also delve into the business aspect of this because I mentioned you're an entrepreneur. Nancy Bruns, you mentioned her name. She's been a guest on Positively West Virginia. Of course, she is the president of J.Q. Dickinson Salt Works and other entities that she has. And if anybody has not tried J.Q. Dickinson products, I highly recommend them. I use them every day in our kitchen. So tell us a little bit about that relationship with Nancy Bruns and the J.Q. Dickinson family.
Yeah, like I said, the first book, Through the Fading Darkness, started off as a ghostwriting project, and Nancy had hired me to do that. And it morphed, as I said, into this historical fiction project. The model was, okay, because it started off as a ghostwriting project, she hired me under a general services contract.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically she paid me a monthly stipend to write the book. And but because of that, she gets majority ownership for like printing sales and the thing about the publishing industry, every type of format has value. So you have Kindle, you have paperback, you have hardcover, you have audiobooks, you have digital rights, you also have film and television rights.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for the first book, as part of the ghostwriting agreement, Nancy gets a majority of the royalties and stuff from the sale of the book. And I look back when we started talking about this, if I'd gone to a major publisher like Simon & Schuster or Penguin or whatever, a lot of people don't know, especially first-time authors, the royalties are like single digits for the writers, right? So I actually did better, by negotiating with Nancy than I would have if I'd gone to a major publisher, right? So we signed that contract and finished that book. And it's turnkey for me. I wrote it, I laid it out with Adobe InDesign, and I did the cover design with Photoshop and got it on Amazon. And
like a self-published.
Yeah,
kind of how
but technically I was publishing under Nancy's.
Yeah, okay,
right?
gotcha.
So,
right.
Because she was paying me to do that, right?
That's great.
So that model seemed to work pretty well. And because of the attention that the first novel got, I was able to, when the second novel came up, I sat down with Nancy and we actually set up a company. It's called Black Dog Media, named after our mutual. We both have black dogs. I have a black German Shepherd that's sitting right over there. But so Black Dog Media, and we put the book under Black Dog Media. But I started selling shares of rights to the second book. Nancy bought 10% because she was all in on the first one. She wanted to see how that did. But I found 6 other investors, frankly, people I knew and I trusted, smart money guys, and sold 10% shares.
Wow.
And that included, the print, Kindle, softcover, hardback, Kindle, audio, film, and television. And that finance that basically paid me my salary for the last 6 months, 9 months, as I was writing the second book.
Amazing.
And the thing about today's world is that mass media, as you know, Jen, is in like this flux.
That's right. That's right.
And technology allows people who know how to use the software, who know how to write and know how to get it out there and get edited and that kind of thing. it allows self-publishers, quote unquote, self-publishers to do a lot on their own. Now, so yeah, as an author, you give up using this model where you're selling 10% shares, 10%, you give up a lot of, well, in the business world would be equity in the books, but in reality, you still end up with more than what you would if you went to a major publisher.
Right.
The biggest roadblock, the biggest hurdle you have to overcome as a small publisher is marketing, because marketing costs a ton of money. And to be honest with you, I don't do social media, and I'm really bad at well, identifying my book market. At least I was with the first, right? So marketing is a challenge for small publishers. Everybody likes, they say, well, why don't you go do a book signing? Well, okay, if you do a book signing tour, you end up spending more money on the tour than you do selling books.
Right.
It's a
Sure.
loss.
Right. Yep.
So we're still trying to crack that nut, but there's some things coming down the road that we think will really get the word out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's got the the other investors really, really pumped. And so probably I'll be starting the third book here in a couple months, and it'll come out.
Amazing. I love it. Anything worthwhile is typically uphill. It is
Oh, yeah.
hard. It is a struggle, but
Yeah.
the dividends, pay, on, at the end, right? You're trying to reap a harvest down the road, but you're planting seeds now, and you're cultivating these books and this company that you've started.
Something else
part of
that I think is really
entrepreneurship.
important, though, is that entrepreneurs, and it doesn't matter whether you're publishing or building widgets or whatever. Something I've learned over the last 25 years is that you got to concentrate on what you're good at.
That's right.
And be able to partner with people who are really good at things that you suck at.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but Nancy,
that's great. Yeah.
I could not ask for a better business partner than Nancy Bruntz. I mean, the woman's brilliant.
Yeah.
She's just she is the best business partner I've ever had.
Amazing.
In any project, in close to 3 decades.
Yeah.
So together we make a pretty good team.
Yeah. You getting back to your point, about doing what you're good at. I tend to look at it like this: only do what only you can do. And
Yeah.
if you focus your energies on that, you can get people and bring them into your team that can do those things, just like you mentioned with Nancy, your business partner.
Right.
This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
My name's Caitlin Furby. I'm an interior designer with Remarkable Interiors. Our time is very limited. We're trying to do everything we can possible to keep our clients' projects moving and rolling. So Storymaker has been really great for us for putting out how to explain our company. I can sit and agonize about a post. And is this right? Does this sound good? When I use Storymaker, it sounds so beautiful, and it was so easy, and it saves me a lot of time to do the things that I'm really good at.
Stay connected with an unbeatable deal from Breezeline. Get reliable, fiber-powered 500 megabits internet for $39.99 per month with a $100 gift card and price lock guarantee, plus a free modem, free installation, and free Wi-Fi your way. Folks, here at Interaction Media, we're a media company, and we rely on high-speed internet every single day to get our jobs done. That's why we use Breezeline. It's affordable, it's fast, and they're awesome people as well. Learn more at breezeline.com. All right, folks, we're back. We're visiting with Zac Northup. He's an entrepreneur. He's a novelist. He's an author, writing historical fiction with his 2 books, Through the Fading Darkness and Beyond the Fading Darkness, the new book. They're both available on Amazon. We'll make sure we have links to that, both of those books, in the show notes. Zac, I mentioned that you are a veteran of the Army. Could you talk a little bit about your military service? Again, thank you for your service, but give us a little bit of background on that, because I'm intrigued by that.
It was a long time ago. I left the military in 2000, and never heard a shot fired in anger. And so everything that's happened, I left roughly a year and a half before 9/11. So I was in the post Cold War, pre Global War on Terror military during the 90s.
Mhm.
Um, and it was the army I was in bears no resemblance to the army that exists today.
Yeah.
And especially the army that existed during the Global War on Terror. I just I want to emphasize that. I never saw combat or anything like that. And to be honest with you, I get a little, and I appreciate it. This isn't you know, a negative or a criticism. When people thank me for my service, I honestly, I kind of like squirm a little bit because, I get where people come from whenever they say that. And it is a genuine sign of appreciation and
Yes.
gratefulness and that kind of thing. But I'm not seeking that. I wasn't seeking that when I joined up. And, I was served as an officer or a TC. My reasons for serving in the military were very personal. And honestly, as a 22-year-old male, I was enthralled with the adventure of it,
Yeah.
the excitement of it. I mean, how, driving around in a Bradley fighting vehicle, firing a 30 millimeter cannon is like freaking cool,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is
flying around
definitely.
in a
Yeah.
Black Hawk is really, really cool, and so, that was part of my motivation. And to be honest with you, after I left, um, I like on, you go to church or whatever, and Veterans Day or whatever, they say, hey, if you served in the military, will you stand up and whatever? I wouldn't, and I did that for 15 years because I was like, well, okay, I appreciate the recognition that they're trying to give veterans, but I served for reasons of my own, and I was perfectly okay with not telling people about it.
Yeah.
And that I don't know if that's common within the veteran community, but I think it is because I've talked to a few people over the years. Um, and basically, what it boils down to is I'm proud of my service. I'm glad I did it. It was defining in my life. But after I left, my life became other things,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
you
Well,
know,
obviously, our past defines our future in
sure,
a lot of ways, and it seems like having a structure like the military could be a good thing. Back in my freshman year of college, I was ready to drop out of WVU and join the Army, just like my dad had done. My dad was an Army veteran, and he likewise had never seen combat or anything like that. Never served overseas, but he was very kind of the same attitude that you had. He'd talk about it, but it wasn't like a big deal or whatnot. But he but I think that is a good pathway for a lot of people, especially here in West
oh,
Virginia. It's an
yes,
opportunity to get out and see get exposed to different things, even if it's just moving out of the state for a time period where you can see other people, see other things. Good,
100%.
like you said, the adventure of it. And I think that's a very worthwhile endeavor in and of itself. And
100%. I tell you, Jim, I can remember, it was in May of 1992. I'd just gotten married, and been married 3 weeks. My wife was an accountant and is an accountant or CPA. And she stayed here in Charleston, but my first assignment was for 6 months at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, right? So I can remember piling all of my crap in a Honda Civic, 1990 Honda Civic, four-door sedan, and just heading west, and there, just the drive out to Oklahoma. And I'd been west before, as a younger person, but just the drive to Oklahoma was like, that was an adventure. I felt like, okay, I'm like one of those Western pioneer type
yeah.
things. And I wasn't, I was driving a freaking Honda Civic, but there was there was something to that. And that changed me, that changed my perspective. And later, I was stationed in Texas, and my wife, of course, joined me. And we lived about an hour north of Austin at Fort Hood. And that was broadening, it gave you a
Yeah.
different perspective. And then later
Yeah.
we moved to North Carolina. But yeah, I agree with, and I tell my kids that, and I told when I was working at that nonprofit, working with kids, I said the exact same thing. When you graduate high school or graduate college or whatever, and if you can pull it off, go somewhere else. And it doesn't matter whether you're raised in Manhattan or, a rural community out in the middle of Kansas, whatever. Go somewhere, see other things, and then make your own decision as to whether you want to come back.
That's right.
Because that way
Yeah.
you don't feel trapped.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's great advice. Now, Zac, when it comes to, entrepreneurship and small business and startups and, whether it's starting a publishing company, like Black Dog Media or, writing a book, when you think about, and even if you're, when you were thinking back to the days when you were running, uh, Stand Watch Academy, the nonprofit, and you're talking to these kids, what's advice that you would give them to say, hey, you know, maybe you could stay in West Virginia. There is opportunity here. Sometimes you have to create your own opportunity by starting
Yes.
a business. Talk a little bit about that.
Gosh, I could go on for a long time about that, but
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest lessons I tried to teach was that the kids, particularly in some of these smaller towns, I could tell they felt awkward about where they were from.
Yeah.
They felt that they were disadvantaged almost because they grew up in a rural area. And there was one student who was underperforming, and his excuse was, "Well, I'm from this place," and it actually kind of made me angry. And I didn't go off on him or anything like that, but I was like, "Look, when I was 26, I got invited, and I'm not name dropping here, but I flew down to actually it was 1998. Excuse me, it's 28. I flew down to Austin, Texas, lived in Charleston, and I interviewed George W. Bush. Um, and prior to that, I had spent a week in the Pentagon interviewing members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And not once in the literally hundreds of interviews I did while I was publishing my magazine, all over really all over the world. Not There's always that small talk when you sit down. You're like, okay, where are you from? Blah 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 blah. Okay, tapes on, go, right? But not once when I told people that I was from Charleston, West Virginia, did anybody say anything snide or make a rude remark or anything disparaging about West Virginia. And that taught me back then that you will be judged on how you handle yourself and the work you do. Okay.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter where you're from.
It's amazing.
And if you're a kid, don't take that back. Anybody.
Yep.
Let's be honest. If you act ashamed of where you are from, if you act insecure about where you are from, most people will pick up on it. It'll make them feel a little bad or whatever. But there are some people out there who will use that against you, and you can't give them that.
I love it.
And
Zac,
so
that's great advice, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Zac Northup, it's been a real honor to have you on the show. I love the fact that you've got the second book out, Beyond the Fading Darkness, the follow-up 3 months later to the end of Through the Fading Darkness, available on Amazon. Thank you so much, Zac, for what you're doing. You're going to have to be the fourth time visitor on our show. We'll have you back on again when the third book comes out. I love following what you're doing. You're shining a positive light on West Virginia the entire time as well. So thank you for that. Again, on Independence Day, thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh gosh, it's been great. I think what you're doing is awesome. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on our show, drop us a line at positivelywv.com, and we'll have show notes, in the show notes, links to all of Zac's contacts and books on Amazon. So make sure you pick up both Through the Fading Darkness and the new book, Beyond the Fading Darkness, on Amazon. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Justin Schofield, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.